But it provides a very nice kind of foil for James. If you remember last week, James says there are a couple of markers of true or pure or the right kind of religion. And it doesn't seem to have anything to do with religion. They aren't very religious markers. It's not about clergy or vestments or how to celebrate communion or when and if and how to sing the Gloria Patri or any of those things. Anything we think is important religiously. James says pure religion is to visit widows and orphans in their distress and to keep yourself unstained, unsullied by the world. Visiting widows and orphans, taking care of people who are marginalized, and then keeping yourself unsullied by the world. When you're growing up, and it doesn't matter if you grew up in the 1940s or in the 2010s, your understanding, probably religiously, from some sort of moralistic Christian tradition would be not to watch the wrong kinds of movies, right? Not to listen to the wrong kind of music. And again, that music changed over time. But there were some you weren't supposed to listen to, and then after a while, some of the music that maybe your grandparents weren't supposed to listen to was okay to listen to. Some of the movies became very tame and very calm, and you were allowed to watch those. My mother was telling me once that she wasn't allowed to go to movie theaters, and when she asked why, the convoluted answer was because they sell cigarettes there. And she said, what if I don't smoke cigarettes in the movie theater? I just watch the movie. Well, that's a slippery slope. Right? And very importantly, especially for teenagers, don't find yourself in the amorous embrace of the wrong person, especially late at night, right? One of my brothers told our mom, most of the fun happens at noon, Mom. You can make a lot of trouble at noon. So then every time he'd leave the house in the middle of the day, she was wondering what he was up to. I wasn't wondering because I knew. But James has something very different in mind. James is talking about being seduced by power, being seduced by wealth and riches, being taken in and ravished, and then left with the hotel bill while power moves away. It means being attracted and drawn to stock portfolios and second and third and fourth homes and Instagram success and beauty. But the other side of the bed is a disdain for the poor, is a disdain for the powerless, is a disdain for those people who are not quite like you. Because we all want to sort of become the powerful. We want to become the wealthy. We want to become the people in charge. And some of us have been. Some of us are the people in charge. And we have to keep that in mind, that maybe some things that are in the Bible, some of these things maybe aren't written to us. It's hard to find ourselves on the other side of that, isn't it? And I don't think James is talking about this kind of like post-enlightenment, all men are created equal sort of thing. He is talking about something more nefarious. He's talking about class consciousness, right? We're not supposed to have class in the United States, right? We're not supposed to have class consciousness in the United States because all men are created equal. And it doesn't quite work that way. We're supposed to be supposed to not be aware of ourselves. But as long as power can convince you, number one, that there is no class, and number two, that within classes you should divide yourselves anyway, power stays in power. And power can maintain and retain its own standing. So we blame dumb rednecks, right? We blame black people. We blame each other. We blame the people who are to the right or to the left of us politically. Because they're the problem. They're the ones creating the issue. And power maintains itself. And in a capitalist system, it's easy for power to maintain itself. Because it can co-opt almost anything. And so you can have large corporations and large donors giving money to the very people who fomented the insurrection on January 6th and also sell you products with rainbow flags and Black Lives Matter. And they can give money to the politicians all the way across the board because power is power and power wants to maintain. And the best way for power to maintain itself is to find someone to blame. It's the Russians, it's the Chinese. It's not us, we're the good guys, right? We're the good guys and we don't forgive. Did you hear the president say that last week? We do not forgive. And we're not a Christian nation. We don't want to pretend like we are. But you know what we do? We forgive. Ugh. Power wants to maintain itself. And it can maintain itself only by creating enemies and by saying that those people are the bad people. Now, James seems very happy to say those people are the bad people, doesn't he? Don't you know that it is the rich who oppress you? If you took all the verses, little verse markers, and maybe some of the references to the Lord Jesus Christ out of the book of James, many pieces of it would read like some kind of 19th century socialist tract. And it gets deeper and deeper and deeper. He talks about laborers. Seems very appropriate on this day. And we are not, we haven't maintained that, or haven't attained that kind of power that James is talking about. But I think many of us know how to maneuver through it. We know how to make use of it. We know what it looks like. James is talking about solidarity with the marginalized in the specific, not in these abstract ways. In 1969, Fred Hampton, chairman of the Black Panther Party of Chicago, was 21 years old and was murdered by the Chicago Police Department. But before he was murdered, he said this: we've got to face some facts. That the masses are poor, that the masses belong to what you call the lower class. And when I talk about the masses, I'm talking about the white masses. I'm talking about the black masses and the brown masses and the yellow masses too. We've got to face the fact that some people say you fight fire the best with fire, but we say you put fire out best with water. We say you don't fight racism with racism. We're going to fight racism with solidarity. You don't fight capitalism with black capitalism. You fight capitalism with socialism. Now, don't take this as some kind of blanket endorsement of socialism, because this isn't the 20th century or the 19th century, this is the 21st century, and we face very different things. But we don't fight fire with fire. We fight fire with water. We don't fight hatred with hate, we fight hatred with love. We don't fight division with division, we fight division with solidarity. Say amen or something? I kind of like that idea. I feel very lonely up here. We don't fight with the same tools that have oppressed people, that are oppressing people. And in the 21st century, we probably want to expand this idea of what we mean by the rich, right? Because we all like to blame the four rich people that everyone casts aspersions on. And yeah, they probably do some very bad things. But the rich exist in ways that they did not exist in the first century. Corporations are people too, my friends. Right? Corporations and corporate power oppresses people. And you can list corporations like Nestle and Bayer and Volkswagen and Union Carbide and Purdue Pharma. And you can say those are corporations, those are people who have done things, those are persons I should say, not people, those are persons who have done things which would probably lead to imprisonment if you did them as an individual, or perhaps you might be executed. But we have never executed a corporation. We have never beheaded a corporation and divided its body up among the masses. But maybe we should. Wouldn't that be interesting? If Purdue Pharma were sentenced to death for murdering people, knowingly killing people? If Royal Dutch Shell was held responsible and accountable for the things that they've done? If Bayer was put in prison because they were Nazis instead of given all kinds of contracts? Wouldn't that be a different world? It is the rich. says James, don't you know that it is the corporations and the news media that oppresses you? Maybe James would write today. And it's interesting, and it's probably useful to talk about those corporations. But as long as we're divided and squabbling for the scraps like dogs under the table in the story of Jesus, the system's safe, and it can keep on moving itself forward, and it can create in-group and out-group thinking. And we worry that it's going to somehow, if we talk so much about solidarity, that somehow we will foster some kind of class warfare, as though class warfare isn't already happening, as though there's not a system that continues to oppress people. All we're doing is becoming aware of that reality, not making that a reality, not creating it. And when we talk about solidarity, we're not talking about putting on red armbands and setting up barricades in the streets, although, is that really so bad? Is it really so bad to draw direct and specific attention to the realities of oppression? That's exactly right, ma'am. Solidarity helps us transcend ourselves, and it helps us to sit with people who aren't exactly like us. It helps us to understand the plight of widows and orphans, and to visit them in their affliction. So then we move over to Jesus in Tyre. Now Tyre, if you don't know, and apparently the readers of Mark must have known because he doesn't really explain any geography. Tyre is on the Mediterranean Sea. It's way north. So Jesus goes there, and it's kind of a Gentile city. And he's hiding out in a house. He doesn't want anyone to know he's there. Maybe he's trying to relax. Maybe he just is trying to figure out what the next step is going to be. In the book of John, Jesus would not be trying to figure out what the next step is going to be, right? But in the book of Mark, Jesus is hiding. He doesn't want anyone to know he's there. And this woman finds him, this Gentile, this Syrophoenician woman finds him. And like mothers that we see images of, throwing their children over barricades so they can be rescued from places like Kabul, places like Central America. We've seen images of women dropping children over the border walls south of us. Like the kind of mothers who, very proud women who sit in welfare offices with their unruly children, filling out paperwork just so they can buy groceries for these unruly children. That's who this woman is. She is desperate enough to go to another place and ask this foreign teacher to do something for her. And again, if this were the book of John, it would say Jesus responded this way because he knew what he was going to do. But Mark doesn't give us that out. The temptation of preachers is always to defend Jesus in this situation and to explain away his attitude toward this woman. But we can't really rescue Jesus, not in the book of Mark at least. We can't rescue Jesus from what he's saying and what he's doing. But when the woman comes back at him and says, look, you even feed little dogs like the crumbs off the table, you can see something shift inside of Jesus. And he does what she asks. And then he goes north to a city called Sidon. And then from there, he goes all the way back through, across to around to the other side of the Sea of Galilee, away from his home territory, and into this area called the Decapolis, which is a series of 10 Greek cities, settled by Greek-speaking Greek people right after Alexander the Great, who kind of conquered the entire world. And he heals a person. Jesus begins to move into Gentile territory because this desperate woman showed him something. This perhaps widow, this perhaps orphan, this marginalized person comes to him and says, please do this for me. And you can do this for me. And Jesus begins to expand his understanding of his own mission. There's a Korean theologian who teaches at Union Seminary named Chung Hyun Kyung. Chung Hyun Kyung. who uses this Korean concept called Han, H-A-N. And she's not the only Korean theologian to use this, but this is the way she describes Han. She says that Han emerges from the sinful interconnections of classism, racism, sexism, colonialism, and imperialism. And I know that sounds very political, and we're supposed to be doing religious things, but James says that religion doesn't look like religion. It looks like solidarity with the poor, and it looks like not being tainted and seduced by power and wealth. Han is this intersection of classism and racism and sexism and colonialism and imperialism. And that's true for Korea, that's true for most of Asia and most of Africa, that's true for most of the Americas. That intersection happens, and it's true for Jesus. Jesus is a product of the intersection of colonialism and sexism and even chauvinism. But as he begins to deal with the rift that's created by Han, Jesus starts to become more and more the Christ. Not just this traveling rabbi, not just this healer, but moving into the rest of the world and becoming something very different. But part of what he was doing, at least according to his own dialogue, was deciding who is in and who is out, who deserves and who doesn't deserve. And this is a very important thing for us, sort of smart, elitist, generally white folks to realize. We don't get to decide who deserves and who doesn't deserve. James doesn't say that the deserving poor should be on your radar. He says the poor. Jesus doesn't say love your deserving neighbor. Jesus says love your neighbor the way you love yourself. When I was young, I heard someone say that they kind of describe the distinction between grace and mercy, and maybe some of you have heard this, that mercy is not getting what you deserve, and grace is getting what you don't deserve. And I'm not sure that deserve should even enter into our conversation when we are talking about theological things. Because what we mean is you deserve to get hurt, and then you don't get hurt, even though you deserve it. You don't deserve to be treated kindly, and that usually means by God. But you do deserve to be mistreated by God. That seems very silly. That seems very useless. Deserve and not deserve don't seem like great categories for ways to think about and talk about people, because that's how we talk about refugees, isn't it? We talk about Afghan refugees. The people we talk about are the people who helped us, right? They deserve to be helped. And we have to vet them very carefully. It takes 2 years to figure out who deserves to be here and who doesn't deserve to be here. And I know that as a nation you have to make decisions about who you let in. But when we talk in terms of deserving and undeserving, we are doing a disservice not only to our neighbors, but to the God we say we believe in. Those are very, very different things. I was talking to a guy one time who ran a food pantry, and as he was telling me about some of the clients that came in, I could tell he was thinking about who deserved and didn't deserve his assistance. He was telling me some of these people come here and they have tattoos. As though having a tattoo is a moneymaker. And I'm trying to figure out, how can I get some tattoos and make some money? Or they had a cell phone, or they had a nice car. Maybe they don't deserve to be there. And it doesn't seem like that's how it works. I try to give money to people that I know are going to spend it on Twinkies and whiskey, because that's what I want to spend my money on. They don't deserve my attention, my money. But I don't deserve my money either. I don't deserve the kind of attention that I get. So we live this Christian life, which is an absurd life, because we honor the broken, we honor the lost, we honor the poor, and we have disdain for gold rings and fine clothes, and whatever else that looks like. And we try to figure out ways to mitigate the suffering that goes on in the world. And that seems like a very basic, simple, straightforward Christian message. And the reason it seems like that is because it is. And so as we gather around this table and we remember this brokenness of the body and this poured out life, we become this broken body and this poured out life. And as we become this broken body and this poured out life, we become one with those who are broken and poured out. We live in solidarity with everyone and everything around us. Can you say amen to that? Yes. All right. Can you jump up or hobble up or stand up? And we'll sing together. Number 308, rejoice, give thanks, and sing. I'm sorry, 303.